So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon for our Thursday 2 p.m. webinar series. Thank you also to everyone that has fed back how much you're enjoying them and ideas and suggestions. So if you do have any more suggestions, please drop me a line. You've got my email address, jfoyce@asfp.org.uk. For any other opportunities that we've got, do let us know. But this afternoon is not about that. It's about Gemma McGrattan, who's joining us this afternoon. She is the co-founder and director of Synergy Creative, recently acquired by McCann Group, an employee engagement agency specializing in employee communications and experience from hire to retire. Synergy was recently named Agency of the Year by both the Institute of Internal Communications and the Drum. She has over 25 years experience in communications, employer brand and employee engagement, delivering campaigns for global clients as diverse as British Airways, Odeon, UCI Cinemas, Vodafone, RBS, and Argos, focusing on creating the best employee experience. Gemma knows how to cut through the noise and extract the key points and determine actions to move forward at a strategic level. She is a regular speaker on employee engagement, employer brand, and internal communications. Gemma, good afternoon to you, and thank you so much again for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Shall I just make a start?
Please do. Please do.
Fantastic.
I'll hand over to you, and if you need anything, just give me a shout. I'm just here.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. It's a delight to be here and share with you some thinking on what is very crazy times at the moment. And even for our own business, having run our own business for 14 years, we were acquired literally 24 hours before COVID kicked off. So what's very interesting is that we are integrating with a new family. We're a new company, and I have a boss for the first time in 14 years. So lots of tips from you all, please. Gratefully received on the chat. So that's a lot of change going on for us as well. But what I'll do is I'll start sharing my screen, and then we can get started into the content of the day. So hopefully you can all see that okay. Right, so I guess I thought I'd start with a quick question. I guess if there's one thing we've all noticed in the last 8 to 10 weeks watching events kind of unfold in the press, is that people are looking for answers. Press are being asked questions that they can't answer, and I'm sure you all have been asked questions by your teams that we struggle to answer, and I'm definitely the same myself. So I think it's, when will this end? When will we be back to work? What will the new normal look like? So I thought it would be quite interesting to pose a question, something to just think of as we go through this session. Imagine you're 1 year from today. What does it look like in your business? And what are you going to be doing differently? And how did you survive this incredible disruptive time? Now, I don't know what your answers will be, but there's one thing that you will need, which is your people to be committed, focused, engaged, driven, and delivering for your customers. You'll need to innovate on the spot. You'll want the best people with the best ideas, and you'll want to deliver the best experience. And if you've heard of Gallup that do the big employee studies, they say that delivering, having an engaged workforce, the companies that they rate in their top quartile for engagement, deliver 17% more productivity and 21% more profitability. And as we come out of this process, that's exactly what we'll need. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. So I guess we've all been through this 10 weeks. We've heard these stories. Apple lost 100 billion in value on March the 9th. The markets had a terrible day. The Guardian believes that the economy might shrink. And including ourselves, there's a number of people on furlough and unemployment is rising. And of course, leaders and managers across the world are kind of saying, are we there yet? Are we out of this yet? And simply the answer is no, we're not there yet, but we are on our way. And as leaders, we need to be quite clear and calm and confident in sharing with our people, this is what we need to do. And I've got towards the end of this session a few leadership tips within that as well. So I guess the question for us is, how do we go from this, where there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, to a place where we have trust in you as an employer, compassion, stability in a plan, and hope for a more positive future. And this is the transition that your businesses and our own business has to make right now. So what we thought we would do is talk through the elements of reboarding as we see. There's a lot of focus at the moment on just purely the operational side, so we're going to go a lot broader than that. And then ask a few questions and about leadership and how we as leaders need to lead through this period of uncertainty. So let's get into the reboarding playbook, we've called it. I guess at the moment we're beginning to see across kind of Europe the beginnings of kind of lockdown easing. So for example, here in the UK, we've heard car dealerships from the 1st of June will be beginning to kind of open. We have the retail sector beginning to look at what that might look like. And not only are people beginning to reopen, we're looking at how businesses, certainly businesses in the transport and the airline sector, for example, how they're going to have a new business model and how they're going to survive. And I delivered a webinar this week to a hotel group, and they were saying, our strategy before this was a strategy of investment, but now the strategy is going to need to be very different, and we need to turn that completely around and think about what the strategy will be and how will we cope through this maybe extended period of low occupancy. So when we think about reboarding, we must think of it as an opportunity to reunite our people, build some togetherness, and also think about it from an innovation perspective. And the reason I say that is because from a people perspective, you have people on furlough that are really keen to kind of perhaps get back to work. They'll have a fresh head perhaps, but they might be nervous about what the future brings. And then on the other side, you have people that have worked through, that are exhausted, that are showing signs of burnout. And how do you reunite those two groups? And that's something that we have to look at. So for us, there is 4 areas of focus when we think about reboarding. 1 is around people. 2, it's the perfect opportunity to engage with your purpose and vision and values and the right behaviours. 3, there's the focus on health and safety, which of course is a huge priority, but there's other elements as well, and there's the support themes as well. So we'll take each one in turn. And before we do that, I guess it's so important, you'll have seen this on social media, that your employer brand, the kind of the deal that you have with your colleagues at the moment, it is absolutely in the spotlight. And we've been saying for the last 10 weeks, your employer brand right now is your brand. You'll have seen the likes of brands getting it right as well as those getting it wrong. I don't know if you've seen the website didtheyhelp.com and the likes of Aldi that are kind of being considered heroes and they've got it right, and then plenty of employers that aren't. So for us, it's really important that we focus on our people and that we show how we're going to look after our people. And the first thing to think about is everyone is different. And I know it's stating the obvious, but everyone has had a different experience through this. You have different experiences, different perspectives. People think differently about the future. And now that we're part of McCann Worldwide, we've got access to some fantastic global research. And one of the statistics from the McCann Global Truth Report is that 60% of people will reconsider what's important to them. And this has happened overnight. So if you think about how you're bringing your people back, we've got to really think about, well, where are those people coming from and how can we kind of personalize the experience? And the reality of it is these elements here, there is more anxiety. People have had less time on a commute that they may have been doing exercise or learning. There's people that have had less work and people that have had horrendous amounts of work. So again, these are the factors that we're currently dealing with, and everyone is different. So you do have to think about inclusion and how each of your people's experience is different. So I would ask you, have you thought about the different groups and the different perspectives of people coming back into the business? Because now is a good time to be really looking at what that might be like. And we call it kind of listening to your people. So some of the questions here on the right are hugely important to ask. What employee needs are you catering for? How do people feel about returning to the place of work? What questions do they have? And we've done a study that's been really insightful, just asking two very simple questions. Throughout this whole process, what one thing do you want to take forward? What has been the positives that you want to take forward? And also, what are the things that you are more than happy to leave behind that haven't worked for you? And that just really helps develop some trends for you. So the first focus on reboarding is listening to your people. These are just a selection of the segments, I guess, that you might be faced with. And because of this experience, what's going to be different for each of these going forward, and right down to some of the things that you put in place. We've had clients, unfortunately, that have had colleague fatalities due to coronavirus. So again, these are long-term things to take into account, the support, and those kind of experiences and feelings aren't going to disappear overnight. So if we take a couple of these in brief, for example, we've got to be asking, what might those groups feel and what questions might those groups have? So if you have colleagues that live alone at home, they may want to return, they may be quite keen to return to the workplace and see their colleagues and have some connection. But they could be quite anxious about the overwhelm and the difference of that. So some of their questions might be, well, how are you going to help me take care of myself? How will you help me kind of integrate back in smoothly? And how will you help me find this new balance that I crave? So a good first step for you is to look at your audience, your colleague population, and really look at the groups that you're serving, what their needs are, and how you might address those needs. So that's point one. And again, just to summarize kind of how we've been doing this with our clients, there's been a lot of surveys around looking at what the needs are, creating those personas, like you saw the 6 we had there previously, asking people how they feel about a return to work, because people have views about kind of what flexibility they might expect going forward. And then the support that you might put in place, which could be manager toolkits, visual journey roadmaps are working very well. And also, if you're phasing your people back, you'll have perhaps the first phase that come back, and they will have feedback and a view on the experience. You want to take those learnings and fit that into your next phase of people that will come back. So that's all quite important. So we've certainly, with a lot of our clients, been doing the segmentation of the groups and the different messages for those groups. And probably in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a huge rise in demand for the reboarding guides, the leader guides, the kind of next normal guides, and guides and support for managers across different clients. So area 2, or theme 2, is all around your purpose and strategy. And as I said at the beginning, this is a huge opportunity for you to onboard everyone, not just those on furlough, everyone in the business. And, you know, purpose is key at the moment. What do you want to be remembered for throughout this process? And, you know, whether people stay or don't stay with you longer term, what do you want to be remembered for? Because that's that's what you want people to take away with them. So it is a really good opportunity to reboard everyone, remind them what the vision is, remind them why you exist, and the benefit you offer in the world, and also have real clarity on the strategy. Now, I'm not talking strategy as in, you know, 1 year, 2 years. I'm talking as though you're a new CEO, and it's what are we doing in the next 30, 60 and 90 days? Because that's all people can feel they can relate to. It creates a sense of urgency. It gives you focus. And to be honest, even with me running my business, I know I can probably make some good estimates about what the next quarter will look like. Any further than that, and it's very dependent on government regulations, it's very dependent on clients and how the whole return will be across the world. So I think a very clear strategy and plan for the next 3 to 6 months, I think, is reasonable, and it will give a sense of direction. And then we mustn't forget our values. So whatever values you have, this now is the time to live those values. So whatever decisions you make, whatever the plan is, whatever support you put in place, it's important to make sure that you're doing it and you are truly living your values, because again, that's what people will remember, and that will drive the right behaviours that you need to see in your business. So it's hugely important to look at those elements together, and it would be a shame to miss that opportunity to do this for all of your people. And then it doesn't also feel like furlough just coming back and then feeling a bit different to everybody else. The next theme is the theme where a lot of people are starting, the operational practical theme. And of course, health and safety is absolutely your number one here. So again, depending on what country you're in, you'll be very governed by the government regulations, and you'll have this balance to play between what the government needs of you, what the employees need of you, what the business need, and what your customers need. So you'll have that balancing exercise. The one thing I would say about health and safety from the things that I've seen is just how you go about communicating it, because I've seen some shocking presentations and guides that are, you know, red, black, yellow and black, and warning signs. And having looked at quite a lot of that, it's really frightening. And I think people feel anxious enough as it is. I was on a discussion just this morning with several HR directors across Europe, and they all said people are feeling anxious about coming back. And some people are saying, I'm not coming back until there's a vaccine. I mean, we've got to deal with that anxiety. And as leaders, a really interesting question to ask yourself in your communication of these things. Am I fueling the panic, or am I fueling the preparedness? And we all want to be fueling the preparedness and not the panic. So I think the way that you communicate the health and safety aspects, it can be done in a I guess in a friendly and non-shocking way, because it's all going to be different anyway, but just avoid the kind of the reds and the yellows and the kind of shock tactics with that. How we talk about the logistics is important. There's I've been looking at the government guides myself today, and there's 40 pages of this and another 40 pages of group work to go through. There's a lot for people to take on. So just in terms of the practical running of the operation, you've got to try and keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it regular, and kind of phase it for people to avoid that overwhelm. As people come back, there'll be a lot to take on board. So comms is, as I said, is really important there. Comms, styling, the design, your tone of voice, you have an impact there, and you've got an opportunity to do that in a nice way. And then, of course, your policies. So some of the obvious ones in your policies that you might like to review are things like your flexible working policy. That might have to change going forward. And I guess if you think about your people experience from hire to retire, what elements of that process, whether it's, building up new people like some of the supermarkets have done, how will you onboard them differently? Just what are your policies and processes that might need tweaked to kind of see you through between now and at the end of the year? And in some of the big companies, for example, it's really interesting because some of the briefs that we've had in the past are all around digital transformation, people HR transformation, and making a lot of the things we make available to our people self-service or learning, e-learning, and so many companies saying we've got this great e-learning and self-service tools, but no one's using them. So that has beautifully changed through the whole kind of COVID period. But how can you kind of keep that continuing and maintain the momentum? So if we go on to the last area, support and wellbeing, and obviously this is a huge area. So if we talk about wellbeing, you'll need to have listened to your people to know what you're dealing with and what support you need to put in place. Like the example I gave earlier of people that have had very tough experiences through this. I was talking to a chief people officer a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, I have a member of the team that lost their mother and their grandmother in 2 weeks. Those sorts of experiences, we're going to need to really support and look after those people as they return. And not only that, we're going to have to really help our leaders manage those situations very sensitively. There's also the financial well-being. I've put the areas at the end. You've got the physical and mental well-being, of course, but as well as the emotional, the financial well-being, and how people are kind of coping coming back. So most of the big organizations are lucky enough to have these well-being programs. It's a really good way to kind of reinforce the elements, or find the resources and signposts and tools against each of those areas, so you've got them all covered together. Learning's another a big area that we've seen just in the last, it's a hot topic in the last couple of years, but it's been hugely focused on in the last month or two. Learning has been great for those on furlough if they wish to engage with it, not necessarily mandatory training, but here's the learning that's available. Feel free if you wish to kind of brush up on some skills if you want to. So, and I guess as we come back and have to be far more adaptable and innovative in the way we do things, you want your people to be continuously learning. So this is your opportunity to kind of pursue a learning culture or a learning mindset that people are learning all the time, much like they do kind of as consumers. So we've definitely noticed a big rise there. Leaders and managers is a huge area. So I was talking to CEO the other day, and he was saying, gosh, our leaders are in an interesting position. If you're anything like me, you're perhaps back to back on Zoom, Skype calls all day. And he asked the question, when are leaders doing their deep thought? When are leaders thinking about the hard strategies and the things that they really need to think about? And he was saying he believes it's either early in the morning before this stream of calls begins, or very late at night. And is that the best time to do your deep thinking? So that was quite an interesting take from a very seasoned CEO. And also with our leaders and managers, the way we'll have to manage going forward will change. So being slightly more remote in the way that we manage, it's kind of less management and more management by outcome. So again, that's a new skill for leaders, where you say, this is the outcome that we need. It's up to you how we get there, but that's the expectation. And then how do you kind of coach that kind of performance through to the end outcome? And performance coaching conversations has always been saved in the last kind of 3 to 6 months for the performance review cycle. And that whole discipline in HR have always said, yes, performance management needs overhauled. We want more ongoing performance conversations. And now is the perfect opportunity to look at that. But even that itself needs help and advice. So I have an occupational psychologist here at Synergy, as well as behavioural science. And there is a way to ask the open questions. There is a way to ask a more coaching orientated question. And our leaders need that advice and that guidance and those tips and those tools in their tool belt to be able to do that. So one thing we've noticed here is a lot of briefs in to help produce the right guides to support our leaders and our managers. A big utility just last week has asked us about a guide for managers on the best way to engage with remote teams. And it's just more tools and support that your leaders need. And how are your leaders feeling about it? Because they may be feeling quite nervous and anxious. Do you know what your leaders need from you in order to manage you through this next 3 to 6 months? So that's certainly a question I would be asking. What do you need? How are you feeling? What support can we offer you? And then how are you going to manage what's needed kind of at a distance, and what support do you need? And of course, listening and feedback plays a huge part in this. So that more regular check-in with people is very important, especially if you're phasing people back, as I mentioned before. What can you be learning? What can you be checking? Because I don't think any of us know what it's going to be like. We've got to lead and manage in a very kind of vague and uncertain time. So it's only by perhaps, well, we'll try this, we'll go on this path, we'll see how this works, we'll amend our approach as necessary. That's the way that we're going to have to move through that. Some people are comfortable with that and some people are not. So that's what we have to work through. So that summarises the 4 key areas of onboarding. And what I would say, I feel there's a 5th as well, which I've been talking to a client about in the Middle East, which is the innovation piece. So as people return, and there's this huge energy and momentum to leave behind what's just happened. With the support and the new ideas that you'll have to think of and all the new strategies you may need to survive, innovation and having an innovation mindset is a huge opportunity for you. So use that energy and harness that energy around innovation for your business. And there is a million examples of that we've seen, from the tyre companies that have said, we've talked for years about, mobile operations to change tyres at home, but we're doing it now. And the restaurants that have decided to do deliveries. There is innovations everywhere. There's some great examples, and you can inspire your people to help you find the new revenue streams if you need them. So in the shorter term, just to summarize that up, it's important to follow these steps. Again, looking outside, being inspired with how businesses have changed, the innovation and the thinking. You've got to be listening to your people and who you've got coming back and what their preferences are. And then you can begin to create that engagement plan, the visual roadmap, and show that journey with confidence and with reassurance. In the longer term, we think you have two-stage approach. So again, consider out of all of those areas we've talked about that you might need to dial up or dial down. For example, I've just heard one business saying we are good on our purpose and values, but we're definitely light on the leadership support side. And there's other businesses that have got all the health and safety absolutely sorted, but they need to work on the wellbeing side. So by looking at these slides, have a really good think about which elements you need to dial up and dial down. And then on the tactical side, you can start looking at what kind of reboarding kits you might need. So here's one of the ones that I mentioned earlier, one for managers. There's the welcome back packs. There's the innovation sprints. There's so many ways that you can bring your people in and integrate them and make the use of their fresh perspectives right now. So I thought it might be interesting to inspire ourselves as well. So now, as we're part of McCann World Group, we've been looking at what's been happening in China because they've gone ahead. They're a little bit ahead of us. And we asked the team in China, my business partner, Nikki, had a good conversation with them. And we said, well, you're back now. And kind of how is that working for you? What does that look like? And what lessons have you got for us? And these were their three kind of valuable pieces of advice. There's something around being patient, having that kind of phased, flexible approach and really learning from that phased approach. There's a lot around being prepared, hence this reboarding playbook that we're talking about. So really being in tune with the initiatives that you need to really focus in on for your teams, and be protective. So again, health and safety is the most important. It's the most basic human need. So that has to be your concern, and deliver everything else with compassion and care, and then you will be well on your way. So it's quite nice to hear their lessons being a little bit further down the road than us. So I thought I would just finish off with a little bit around leadership and what we believe people want. So at McCann Synergy, we work with clients that have 1,000 employees up to 80,000 employees. So we're talking to colleagues all the time about what they want and their expectations. And these four things are really, really important. So number one is all about hope. Where is the hope? And I think there's two parts to that. Part A is you have to be quite truthful about the situation you're in and the facts, and they may be quite brutal facts about the position of the business. There's no point hiding away from it. Give people the truth and the facts, but follow very closely with the hope. Where is the hope? Where should we be focusing? What can we look forward to? Because people need hope to hang on to. So where should we focus? That then ties in nicely with opportunity and what we were talking about early, the innovation. What will be our new revenue streams if our business strategy has changed? Where are the new solutions? Then you've got number 3 about the certainty of the plan. This is what we're going to do over the next quarter, over the next 6 months. You might want to deliver your plan at 2, and then part of the plan is looking at opportunity. So the 2 can be interchangeable. It doesn't have to be in order. And how will you communicate that plan with confidence and with reassurance? And in that plan, what role do your people play? Because very often the best ideas come from the front line. So what opportunity are you giving your people to contribute with their ideas and give them some control back? And then above all, simplicity. Right now, with people at home, homeschooling, caring for neighbours and relatives, home working, thinking about transition, it is easy to feel overwhelmed with change. So it's our job to make it easy and simple and bite-sized so that people can clearly and simply see the way forward. So that's what people want. So as leaders, what should we be asking ourselves? And again, they're generally simple questions. How can you be a good leader? And what can you do as a leader to give this more positive, calm approach? How can you help? And where do you really add best value? So they're good questions to keep asking now and then. It's very easy to get swept away with the rush of things that are needed and today's crisis and how are we going to do this and how are we going to that. But through all of that, how can you be a good leader through this process? What does that look like? And I was reading a Corn Ferry study that positioned it beautifully. They said, how do you need to be? What do you need to be like? And what do you need to do? And they called it the be-do model. And I thought, I love the simplicity of that. And then I guess some thought starters. So we study a lot of leadership here with our psychology and behaviour science teams. And we look a lot at what makes good leaders and good leaders and innovation together. And there's some really common threads. And here is some of them here for you. So inspire a positive way forward. That really relates to that question earlier about, are you fueling panic or are you fueling preparedness? You do need to be the beacon of light. So if you are presenting the facts of where you are, you've got to talk about the hope really quickly, and you've got to do that in a positive way. Calm and confidence. Everyone is looking to you for calm and confidence. And there's so many studies I can tell you about that say people look to their employer for trust and reassurance. Show the path forward, but again, not the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year path. What's the path, the 30, 60, 90 days? How are you going to communicate? How are you going to talk about the milestones, recognize the achievements, celebrate the little achievements? How will you collaborate with your people? This is about giving them control back and trying to find those great ideas and those new revenue streams. How can you be compassionate, because everyone has their own experiences that they'll have been through? And above all, when you're in a lot of disruption and uncertainty, people can often be stuck in all of the bad things and all of the things that aren't going so well. But the key question is though quite often those are the things we can't control. So the question naturally is then, focus on what you can control. What can we do? This may all be happening over here. It may feel like this, but in light of that, what can we do? And there will always be 2 or 3 or 4 things that you can do as a team, as a leadership team, as a business. So that is very empowering for people. So I thought I would end on just a few thoughts around kind of turning this strategy and approach into action for you, and just some kind of little ideas here and there. So we've got the importance of inclusion that we've talked about, and the idea of looking at your employee groups and personas. We have the idea that no 2 days will be the same. So make sure you're really looking at what everyone is interested in and talking about. So measurement is a good opportunity here. What's our baseline and what are we improving on? Managers, I can't emphasize enough, your leaders and managers are so critical to this process. So really help them with the guides, the support, listen to them. What do they need to manage in this very new way? And then just another few, again, in communications, we talk about deal with the real, the facts, the information, and deal with the feel, how it feels, the emotions, and the kind of empathy. So real and feel that you've got to cover when you're looking at your communications, and deal with the emotion first and then the reality. In terms of your plans, again, so many businesses we've spoke to are having to completely change their strategies. Your people experience will be different. Have a little look at what you've got. What can you do and what can you address first? And I guess the final one, the new normal, has been a very popular session that my business partner Nikki has been running. We're calling it the next normal rather than the new normal. But how can you get creative and innovative with what that might look like for your business? And I would say listen to your people, ask them, involve them, and help do that in a collaborative way. So that completes everything I was going to share with you. It's about 40 minutes. I thought that might be a good pausing point to stop for some questions and any thoughts and ideas that people have had. But thank you for listening.
Gemma, thank you very much. That's really fascinating. Much of what you've said makes perfect sense, of course. And I think what's really interesting is you say 60, I think your research suggests 60% of those employees that you spoke to will reconsider what's important. And that, I mean, that really is very powerful, because just 2 months ago, all we were talking about was Brexit for the last 3 years, interestingly. And I don't remember having a conversation in the last 8 weeks about Brexit. So how quickly things can move on, and how, you know, what you're suggesting here is so powerful to be able to reboard individuals into.
And people are used to that change. Literally I could probably chart over the 8 to 10 weeks a different kind of theme each week, from when people first went into lockdown. It's literally, from a people perspective, I could chart every week what's happened, and people are used to that. Now everyone needs a sense of kind of calm now, but people have been forced into these new solutions, and they've been innovative and creative. So you want to kind of harness that going forward.
There's an interesting question that's come in. I thought we'd just share that one really quickly. It says, if some of the team have been furloughed and some haven't, do you have any tips on how to best approach the integration of those returning versus those that have been working? Would there be any animosity there? Would some feel that they would like to have had the opportunity of not worked? How would you?
Yeah. Do you know what? I've got exactly that question in my team as well. So, and I have a session with my furlough colleagues at the end of the day today. So I think there's two things here, and I think it's kind of an appreciation for each other's reality. because the people that are working might perceive, well, it's all right for you, you're enjoying sitting in the sun and you just haven't got anything to do, and lucky you. Whereas probably the reality of perhaps a lot of people on furlough, the people that I've spoken to, are all of a sudden they're missing a purpose. They feel quite anxious that they haven't got something to get up for every day. They're extra nervous about their jobs because they're a little bit out of the loop. And the other thing I've heard is that, well, people feel that you've all worked really hard and been together through this, and we're missing that bond that you guys have created. And also, there's people that have volunteered and done quite amazing things whilst they've been on furlough. So I think, one, we need a better understanding of each other. So it's quite nice to kind of find out what have people been doing on furlough, and share those stories and share the kind of how they felt about it. And also, you can do the same with your people in the business. You often find that they're missing each other, but they just don't have a clear view of what's actually happened. So I think for the people that have been in the business, this is where you have to hugely dial up the recognition for how hard and committed they've been through this process. They've really held the fort. So recognition is really important there. And for your furlough people, listening to their concerns, trying to share and shine a spotlight on what they have been doing. As I say, some people may have been volunteering. Some people have shown quite a lot of their vulnerabilities. And then I think you begin to kind of share those stories and find something to unite around, which really has to be about how do we kind of go forward together. And that's where your purpose, your strategy and values really come in. Get everyone aligned around a new purpose, and give the people that are tired a break for when those furlough people can perhaps rotate in and out maybe, but a shared understanding of each other, and then a focus on togetherness going forward. I think everyone's kind of dealing with that situation right now. And we've also heard in the retail and financial services, we've had specific examples of people working on the front line, and they say, well, it's all right for you. You guys are working at home. You're safe. But I'm having to go into the shop or the bank, and I'm putting my life on the line, and I don't even work in the NHS. So how you listen, how you reassure, and how you recognise and address any of their concerns is really important. Listening is key.
And I think what's interesting, speaking to other colleagues in different parts of the industry, are looking at this as a bit of an opportunity. They're classing it as a chance to hit the reset button, and I think that's very, very interesting, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and it is the opportunity. You'll never get this opportunity again to fast track through new ways of working. How often have we all talked about, flexible working is coming, personalization is coming, digitization is coming, e-learning is coming, all of those things that have been thrust upon us and have worked well. So how, it shows you what you can do. So how do you use that kind of the lack of barriers and that kind of quick approach to apply that to other things that your business may need right now? And I guess you've got to come back to, well, what does our business need right now? What are the three things that will help us thrive? Maybe not just survive, but thrive.
Oh, Gemma, thank you very much. I'm sure we could talk all day about these opportunities, but we really do appreciate your time. We're very grateful. I know how busy you are with all the other clients you're working as well. So sparing sort of an hour with us is really very well received. Thank you very much. There's one question that's come in from Trina. Can we share the presentation that you've shown us? Is it possible to send that out to everyone? Yeah, I will double check. I don't think I've got anything client specific in there, but that should be absolutely fine. Brilliant. And I guess one thing just to mention, I get that we've been doing
a lot of creative sprints around these areas with clients. So that could be something of interest to your members, where it's kind of like a 45-minute creative sprint with all the ideas and inspiration about your challenge, and they've been quite popular across the client base. So there's plenty of kind of knowledge and inspiration here in the business.
Well, fantastic. And if anyone would like to make contact with Gemma and have further dialogue outside of the webinar, then do drop us a line and we'll put you all in touch. So Gemma, thank you very much again. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for taking us through everything.
Great. Good luck, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.